Welcome, folks. Today, January 18th, we are recording. It is at 12:45 in the AM. How are we all doing? I got to say, I just got home from work recently, and today we had news. We started off the day with AJ Minter, the very good, solid pitcher from the Atlanta Braves. David Stearns inking him to a 2-year deal worth $22 million. So, you know what? Not bad at all. Not Tanner Scott, but the second best, probably the second best reliever out there. We're going to go over him. We're going to break him down. AJ Minter, what he's going to bring to our New York Mets. Then we proceed a little further in the day, and we hear Roki Sasaki going to the Dodgers. Damn. Out of all the teams, obviously the Dodgers, they were favorites. They were favorites from the beginning. But throughout this process, there was a bit of hope. Maybe he goes to the Padres. Maybe he goes to Toronto. Maybe he goes to the Cubs. But at the end of the day, this storybook had the answer all the way in the beginning. The Dodgers were the favorites in the beginning, and at the end of the day, the Dodgers were the favorites at the end. And you know what, folks? Good for the Dodgers. But our New York Mets, the goal for the New York Mets, the goal when we got Soto, the goal when Cohen took over this team, when we gave Lindor $341 million, you give Soto $765 million. The goal of this team is to win a World Series. Normally, I wouldn't give a damn what is going on outside of New York. I wouldn't give a damn. But the Dodgers are just so goddamn loaded. How could you not notice? They won the World Series 2 months ago. So they don't sit down. They're not complacent. They're not sitting there saying, "Oh, we just won the World Series. We're going to keep the same team." No, they go out, they sign Blake Snell, they make sure they bring back Teoscar Hernandez, and lo and behold, they get Roki Sasaki. And that's on top of a World Series team. To boot, they have Shohei Ohtani, who's going to be added to the rotation. So I got to say, folks, how could you not notice if you're a New York Mets fan? How could you not notice if you're Steve Cohen? How could you not notice if you're David Stearns? Well, the fact of the matter is, there's no way they are not noticing, right? So then you may be thinking, well, what did we do? We got Shomanaya, we got Soto a while ago. I mean, what's the deal? How can we compete with that team? Well, you know what? There is a plan in progress. And, my theory right now, this is what I suspect. I suspect this is why we played hardball with Pete. All the teams that were not Met fans, all Yankee fans that didn't like the Mets, everybody that wasn't a Mets fan wanted us to sign Pete and wanted us to sign Pete to a long-term deal. Did I want Pete back? Yes. But are there better options than Pete? Think of it. Are there better options than Pete now in the future? I think there certainly are. The Mets tried to retain Pete 3 years. They offered him around $68 million. That is what market value is for a first baseman in the 2024-2025 offseason. Christian Walker got 3 years, 60. Okay, so Pete Alonso is a little better. So you bump it up a few mil a year. You give him the opt-outs. We gave him a pretty decent contract compared to market value. Not what Pete Alonso wants. Okay, fine. You pivot to plan B. Plan B today, that included getting a very solid reliever. AJ Minter, honestly, he's always a guy, obviously you watch a lot of Braves games, and he was a guy coming out of that bullpen that has been really a horse over the last couple years. This year, he was a little injured, had a hip injury, But you know what? I expect David Stearns, giving him $11 million, they are fully confident that he is good to go, I also expect the Mets to make more bullpen signings. But just remember, the Mets are nowhere close to being finished. Do I hope this motivates the Mets even more? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You see the Dodgers getting everybody and their mother. The Mets better have a good plan. They better, be damn motivated. So, it really is what it is. It is what it is right now. Whew, how's everybody doing tonight? Will, Explosive, Richard, how's everybody doing? Hopefully we are doing well. It's when you think about the Dodgers getting better and better, you think you got to be at least as good as good, on the Dodgers level, right? Last year, as the season turned out, I got to say, we were pretty damn close to the Dodgers level. Were they a better team? Yes, they were the better team last year. But last year, we were without Soto, we were without Senga, and we came 2 games short of making the World Series. So if the Dodgers are looking at the New York Mets, they are saying, hey, the Mets gave us a good series, and they added Soto, and they added Senga. So you know what? The Dodgers got better. They brought back Hernandez, and they got better with their pitching. I got to say, they got better with their pitching. So, that's a team over there. That is a team over there. But at the end of the day, I gotta really see where Stearns goes. But I do think that Stearns does have to adapt, right? We hear all about the Stearns philosophy. David Stearns sitting back, waiting, signing guys at his price and his price alone. I don't think that philosophy is going to work out long term. If you're going to be better than a team like the Dodgers, you're going to have to go the extra mile once in a while. And then, you hear, and I've been saying this, they're going to target these generational players. But at the end of the day, there's only a handful of generational players. There's not 10, 20 Juan Soto or Juan Soto types. There's only one Aaron Judge. There's only one Juan Soto. There's only one Shohei Ohtani. So you got 5 players in all of MLB that you might target. So I feel David Stearns is going to come to the realization that he's going to have to expand his horizon. And next offseason, if a guy like Teoscar Hernandez comes along, it may be worth it to give him an extra 10 mil or an extra year for several reasons. Obviously, Teoscar Hernandez gives the Mets that extra weapon, that extra pop in the lineup. It could have helped them out in the negotiations with Pete Alonso, because now, they're like, Boris is like, okay, they got a guy like Teoscar Hernandez. They don't really need to pay up. Maybe this could have been settled a month ago or something like that. And also, Teoscar Hernandez, you take him away from the Dodgers. So I would like David Stearns to not be so rigid, to not be so set in his old ways, because if you're going to compete with teams that are so super, super aggressive like the Dodgers, you're going to have to go outside your box. And, that's I think is pretty plain and simple. Explosive, the biggest fumble by Stearns, not going all in at the deadline. This team could have beat the Dodgers. Now the Dodgers are the 98 Bulls. Great point, Explosive. I mean, honestly, that's what I said last year at the deadline. That is what I said last year at the deadline. If you think about our key acquisitions last year, you are 100% right. We had an opportunity last year, and that's a case in point of what I was just saying about going the extra mile, thinking outside the box. If Stearns was a bit more aggressive, if Stearns picked up a Jack Flaherty, that would have blocked him from going to the Dodgers, and that would have beefed up our rotation a little. You knew Senga was injured. What'd you get? Blackburn? I'm not surprised that, you got that little output and then he got injured. He wasn't, honestly, if that's the best pitching acquisition we got, it wasn't that great. Jesse Winker, that was a nice move. We got a couple of nice relievers, but we didn't make any significant progress at the deadline. So that's a really great example of the Stearns philosophy getting in a way of a potential World Series. And I know the New York Mets went further and probably played better than even David Stearns imagined, which, that's, if he didn't forecast that, that's his own fault. That's a mistake in itself. But the Mets, fact of the matter is, the Mets had an opportunity to win the World Series in 2024. And great point. Because of the lack of aggressiveness of Stearns, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Does it mean I'm going to lose confidence in Stearns? No, but it's an example of that, conservative approach not panning out. Oh, explosive. I didn't think Dom was going live. Yeah, I had a little problem. I got out of work at 11, and I got home a lot later than I thought. And then for some reason, had a problem with the video. And then the site that I'm on, all of a sudden, I'm going live, and it's saying you gotta. I guess I had to renew my membership. So it was a whole rigmarole. So it took a little extra couple minutes. I appreciate everyone sticking with us. Well, Tim, isn't this the question? Should the Mets trade for Jays slugger Guerrero Jr. to replace Alonso at first base? Well, the Mets certainly need to do something. Certainly need to do something on the offensive end, and they need to do it quickly. The Dodgers are establishing a murderer's row pitching staff. I mean, that pitching staff is going to be insane. So what are you going to need? You're going to need hitters, patient hitters who work the count, who are tough outs. And honestly, patient hitters, tough outs, work the count. Honestly, as good as Pete Alonso is at hitting the home run, and he wasn't as good last year, he is not a tough at bat, folks. He is simply not a tough at bat. If you watch, how many times have you watched him wave at that pitch 2 feet outside? So if you are David Stearns and you are thinking big picture, Vladimir Guerrero last year he had one of his best years last year. He batted over 320, over 30 home runs. His on base was towards 400. I mean, he is a guy, if you combine him in the lineup, this is what I think the picture David Stearns and Steve Cohen are thinking of. It's not just Vladimir Guerrero. It's combining Vladimir Guerrero with Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. That is the draw. That is the key. And that is what I think will eventually entice David Stearns to make a move. I think it's something that you do now. I know everybody's debating. Well, you know what? Maybe you wait till next year. You, instead of giving up prospects, you can sign them. Easy, right? Easy. Well, wrong, because next year you have all these teams who will be preparing from now until next year. And if you have a bidding war, we've seen it the last couple of years. If you have a bidding war with all of these big market teams, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Red Sox need a first baseman. These teams get involved. Instead of paying $450 for Mr. Guerrero, you will be paying towards close to $700. So not only will you may not get him, but maybe you will get him, but you have to pay an extra $200 million. You have to compete with all of these other teams. And then also too, what about 2025? Let's get him now. Let's get him in the fold right now. Lindor's going to be 31 years old. Let's not waste another year like we wasted 2024. So, there's so many different positives. The negatives are, you lose prospects. And, obviously you got to give to get, but you give the right prospects. And, we have a whole slew of prospects who are being blocked. So if you get a Guerrero in the fold, you have Mark Vientos here, you have Lindor here. That's already, your whole infield is being blocked. And then if you have Acuna at second base, where do guys like Jet Williams play? I mean, you could put him in the outfield, but what I'm trying to say is you have infield prospects that are going to be blocked. Those are the type of prospects I would be willing to trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Would I be willing to trade pitching? Hell no. Hell no. You got to get this done without throwing in your youngsters like Brandon Sprout, Jonah Tong. Those are the guys you cannot trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But you can trade guys like Jet Williams. So, I would go after Vladimir Guerrero. It just has to be the right package. And I think David Stearns in the organization is smart enough to know that they need to keep their young pitching. Richard, and great point. As we currently stand right now, the Mets, you could rightfully say they didn't fill the holes. Obviously, we have a big gaping hole at first base. We have a big gaping hole right behind Juan Soto in the lineup. So, this is not a finished product, folks. This is not a finished product. Alyssa, this is happening late. Well, this is a very important live stream. A lot of important things going on tonight. Unfortunately, I was working till 11 o'clock. So, I'm getting my news all day today. Getting my news. All of a sudden, we got AJ Minter. Damn, I'm at work. All of a sudden, now Roki Sasaki goes to the Dodgers. Damn, I'm at work. So, unfortunately, the live stream's a bit late. I appreciate everybody who took the time that's in here right now. And Richard, wherever you are, it's only 10 p.m. So, yeah, that's not that late. But where we are, it's 1:01 in the a.m. So thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. If you could help out the video, the channel, whether you're watching this live on replay, please hit that like button. Oh, you know what, Richard? Yeah, Southern Cali, and I see explosive. You're writing far from the wildfires. I want to make a comment on that. I mean, hopefully everybody is, you're safe. But that's terrible. That is a terrible thing going on over there. Pray for all the people. Think of everybody. Losing your home, people. Obviously passing away. I don't even. It's just super sad. Super sad. Will, Pete wasn't clutch at all in 2024. Yeah, Pete had a hard time. Pete had a hard time. And I'll tell you, if you look at Pete's advanced stats, right? Pete had the hardest time on the breaking ball. The breaking ball, I believe his average was he hit 180. He did good on the fastball, decent on the changeup, but the breaking ball, slider, curveball, did terrible. I think the slider was the worst pitch. That was the pitch that you saw when Pete's obviously a righty. You saw in the pitchers throw that on the outside corner in the lefty's batter's box that Pete chased so many times. Pete was, very impatient with runners in scoring position. I won't take anything away from Pete. I see Pete having a little rough time. I'm a guy. I appreciate what Pete did. I really do appreciate what Pete did, what he brought to this team, this organization, this franchise, the 53 home runs. I will never forget 226 home runs. I still hope at the end of the day, if we can get him for one more year, I'd love to have him back. But it just doesn't look like, Pete. Pete wants to play for that. He wants to play for that 3 years, $68 million contract that David Stearns feels he's worth. And David Stearns is very, very stuck on that number. He's stuck on that number. He's placed a value on Mr. Alonso, and he won't go off of it. And, I would think that, all this seems like we're setting up for bigger moves. Jesse Winker, 1-year contract. Pete Alonso, we're trying to kind of get him in the fold short term. It really seems like we're setting ourselves up to add another big time contract on the offensive end. Not on the pitching end. It seems like we're going to go kind of like those short-term contracts. The next couple of years, the pitching rotation seems like it's set, folks. Seems like it's set. Sean Manaea, 3-year deal. Holmes, you got him on a 2-year deal. Senga, you got him for another 3 years. You got Peterson and McGill for another 2 years apiece. One of them might have an extra year. But this rotation, and you got guys like Sproat coming up. So the rotation, I don't see us investing a lot of money. That's not how David Stern's approaches things. As opposed to the Dodgers, who have over $150 million invested in their starting rotation, the Mets have about $75 million in cumulated dollars invested in their starting rotation. But what I do see the Mets doing is investing in that bat. Now, is that bat of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? And it seems like there's a lot of smoke around that. 2 days ago, you heard David Stearns was inquiring about what it would take for the Blue Jays to trade him to the Mets. So, you hear all these packages around. Some are built around Jet Williams. Some are built around Brandon Sproat. And that is not the way I would go, folks. In fact, I think one of the trades I saw straight up, Brandon Sproat straight up for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And that's something, as much as I want Vladdy right now, I do not want to give up young pitching. I don't. We have too little of it at this point in time. We have way too little of it. Yes, we're developing. We have some guys in the next couple of years, Nolan McLean, Jonathan Santucci, Jonah Tong. So we do have some guys, Blade Tedwill. We do have some guys, but, Sproat is supposed to be our best. He's I think he's the second or third ranked pitching prospect in all of MLB. So this kid's got talent, and he's going to be 25 years old too. So it's not like he's 3 or 4 years away. So I'd like to see him. I like to see a young pitcher pitch with our rotation. All right, so let's look at the pitching acquisition that the Mets made today. Now, AJ Minter is not a guy that I really heard a lot about, like that the Mets were interested in. So think about this, folks. We're wondering, what is the Mets' next move, right? So it might be a move like AJ Minter, a move that we haven't heard about. And I think this is a pleasant move. Tanner Scott, supposedly wanted around $60 million minimum. I've heard as much as $80 million, 4 years, $80 million, but the last deal I heard was 3 years, $60 million. The Mets were able to get Minter at 2 years, $22 million. So that's about $11 million a year. So a lot less risk, a lot less risk. Does he throw over 100 miles per hour like Scott? No, but he's effective nonetheless. And he is effective. He has been extremely effective throughout the course of his career. So he's a very interesting player. In fact, I want to bring up some of his numbers so we can go over it together. Okay, so this is his baseball savant for 2024. A lot of it doesn't look like it's highlighted because he didn't really pitch in many games. But if you look at his career, he's above average in many categories. Above average in many categories. Let's go back to 2023. And 2023 is really a good example of this guy. You see a lot of red, folks. You see a lot of red, and a lot of us are familiar with Baseball Savant. These numbers here, 85, 50 would be league average. So if you're an 85 in expected ERA, you are 35 points above league average. And if it's red here, that means the darker the red, the more elite you are at this. So 94, that's the darkest red. So the darker red. So there's only a little blue here. Ground ball percentage, extension, and based on ball, 55%. But notice about that, it's still 5 points above league average. So let's kind of break down. We'll break down the numbers first. So last year, 2024, Minter was 5-4 with a 2.62 ERA, under 3 ERA, a 1.02 WHIP, only pitched 34 innings. But if you go to his 8 seasons, very solid 3.28 ERA, very solid. WHIP 1.2. Decent. There was one year that wasn't the greatest, but it was a couple years ago. As of late, the last couple of years, he has really come on strong. In 2023, expected ERA 85th percentile, batting average 79th percentile, fastball velo 95.8. This is 2023. I believe he dropped a little with the velo after the hip injury, but he is a guy who can get it up in the mid 90s. So, that's good to see. Average exit velocity 73rd, chase rate 74, whip rate 85th, and K rate 94. So, this guy, he's a good strikeout pitcher. Pretty decent control. He's a guy you pair. You can pencil him in every single day in the 8th inning. Very solid pitcher, and you didn't have to give him 4 years. You there's no risk here. I'm not going to say no risk, but a lot less risk than giving it to a guy like Tanner Scott. So he's also a guy with a 3-pitch mix. He's got a 4-seam fastball, he's got a cutter, and he's got a changeup. But I've watched him pitch a couple times. His changeup, and I believe it's his changeup. His changeup has a lot of nasty movement. In fact, when I watched his changeup pitch, I thought it was more like a slider. This dives down and in on the right-handers. It is extremely nasty. A nasty changeup. His 4-seamer and his cutter, they both have movement on it as well. But this guy is a really solid pitcher. I would really consider him an elite pitcher. His ground ball percentage throughout the course of his career hasn't been, his strong suit. He doesn't generate a lot of ground balls. 2022, 31st percentile. But look, if you go to 2022, look at these numbers, folks. 96, 89, 88, 91, 96. This is elite advanced numbers. Pitching run value 88. This is nice. Let's look at Tanner Scott. Yanner. And okay, folks, this is elite. This is elite, but you got to pay $60 million for this. You got to pay $60 million for it. Would I do it? This is pretty nasty, folks. This is nasty. Wow. 2022, not so good. Tanner Scott's coming on in the last couple of years, but you know what? Stearns kind of went the way of value, but we still got a pretty good pitcher. Just Tanner was, I would say, a better pitcher, a little better pitcher right now. But at the end of the day, we still got a pretty good weapon. Now we got Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? And this is his 2024 stats. And you can see, folks, look at this. This is elite. Batting run value, 98th percentile. Expected WOBA, 98. Expected batting average, 100 percentile. He obviously batted 321. Expected slug, 98, 567. Average exit velocity, 98th percentile. Guy smokes the ball. I mean, folks, this is what, if you are planning to win now and the Mets do expect or hope to make some type of trade, he is a significant upgrade. I don't think we have many folks arguing that he's an upgrade over Pete Alonso, but he is a significant upgrade in the lineup. He is one of those elite hitters. I mean, last year, 30 home runs, 323 batting average, 400 OPS, 949. I'm sorry, 400 OPS, 400 on base, 940 OPS. I mean, this type of hitter around Juan Soto is scary. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to cost us anything crazy. I really don't. I don't think it's going to cost us anything crazy for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's going to be a free agent next year, right? His value, if you go to baseball trade values, it's not off the wall. It's, if you're familiar with baseball trade values, he has a value in the mid-20s, which isn't crazy. A guy like Jet Williams' value is basically the same. I think it's like 22, 23. So essentially, he has the same value as Jet Williams. I know it'd probably take a little more than that. But if you're looking to build the best lineup and the best team, it's a no-brainer that Vladimir Guerrero would be an extreme upgrade. And he's a guy that puts immense pressure on the opposing pitcher, Robbie, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. Hopefully everything's well. Unfortunately, we had the Sasaki going to LA. I mean, I was really hoping he was going to the Dodgers. But it is what it is. And the Dodgers, they're a team. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be obviously in our way for a very long time, because it's not like they're an old team. They have Betts, they have Freeman, Freddie Freeman. Yeah, that's probably their oldest guy, in terms of talented guys. Betts is 31, Ohtani's 31, Yamamoto's 26, Sasaki's 23. I mean, they got a core that's going to be in their prime for the next 5 years. So, I mean, the Mets, who have Lindor, who's age 31, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to want to take advantage of Lindor's prime. So the time is now. So if David Stearns has identified that, you know what, there's a ceiling that you're going to pay a guy like Pete Alonso, giving him over $100 million doesn't make a lot of sense, because that's money you could be giving to a more productive piece that can help you now and in the future. Were they willing to pay Pete, something to bring it back? Yes, of course. But, I think there is going to be big moves coming. And actually, you know what, Jeremiah makes a really good, something good to know. So he had the same hip injury David Peterson had. I'm assuming you're talking about AJ Minter, and the same surgery. Should be pitching pain-free for the first time in 3 years. And when we went back a couple years, we saw AJ Minter's numbers were reminiscent of Tanner Scott. He didn't have the fastball, but the advanced numbers. So if that's true, he's not going to have any pain. That is going to be something, a sight to see. And now the team, at least the bullpen, is coming into focus. You have AJ Minter in the eighth inning, and you have Edwin Diaz in the ninth. So, let's see what the next move is. But, again, AJ Minter was a guy most Met fans weren't thinking of. So what is going to be the next move that we're all not thinking of? And I'll tell you one thing. And I know Dodgers fans right now are extremely happy, probably running around on the streets right now. Yeah, we're going to win the World Series. I'm telling you, they better win the World Series if you're a Dodgers fan. There's no excuse. I don't want to hear Otani got hurt, Yamamoto got hurt, Sasaki got hurt. You got you got 10 million stars, you got 5 Cy Young Award winners, you got 4 MVPs. You win no matter what. Nobody's gonna feel bad for you. Nobody's gonna cry for you. You're gonna have a target on your back, and you better win if you're the Dodgers. If you're a team like the Mets, I think even though we're going to be considered an underdog against the Dodgers, there's no doubt about it. We will be considered an underdog against the Dodgers. I'm not necessarily that doesn't really bother me. I'd rather be an underdog. What happened last year when the Mets were an underdog, when we came out of nowhere? Takes a lot less pressure off of us to be the underdog. And I think the Mets, I think this team, this culture, Carlos Mendoza, David Stearns, they like to be the underdog. I just hope when push comes to shove and David Stearns has an opportunity to significantly upgrade the team, he doesn't play hardball. Playing hardball with a guy like Alonso, I understand. An aging guy, going to be 30 years old. He's actually going to be 30 and a half, closer to 30 and a half when the season starts. So if you want to play hardball with a diminishing asset, I understand. But other opportunities, we got to seize the moment. And the funny thing is, I'm wondering what the heck is going on with the Braves. Like, if you're a Braves fan right now, you can't feel too happy. I mean, you were supposedly a team that was up there with the Dodgers and up there with the Mets. And this year, like, really haven't done anything. I mean, you just lost a very reliable elite bullpen option. You see what the Dodgers are doing. So, I mean, the Braves, I know they have, they're dealing with a couple of guys coming back from injury, but if you're that fan base, that's a fan base that has, the right to be upset. All right, so let's bring up this. All right, hopefully you could see that. So this is what our what the pitching situation looks like right now. I know we have other options, but these are the main options right now. Obviously, we got the starting rotation: Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Blackburn. The bullpen, you have Diaz, Edwin Diaz, AJ Minter, Jose Budo, Reed Garrett, Danny Young, Sean Reed Foley, and Griffin Canning. He can go either long relief or he can be an extra starting option. So are we happy with that bullpen? I mean, I'll tell you who I'm happy with. I'm happy with Diaz, Minter, Budo, Garrett. Um, and I like to. We need more there. We need. I mean, if you saw how many injuries we had last year, we need a little more elite options. I'll say elite options. Even I like a guy like David Robertson. Like if that guy's on the free agent list, I'd want him as an option. But yeah, I'd say we definitely need another option. Reed Garrett, I think that there's something there with him. Danny Young, he's a little bit more of a soft thrower. Sean Reed Foley, I like to see him healthy, but he was injured. Even guys who were on the Mets last year, Drew Smith, he was injured, but he's a free agent, obviously. Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek, Ryan Stanek, that would be another arm. And Ryan Stanek, folks, if you notice last year, as the year progressed in the playoffs, you saw Ryan Stanek get better. And Ryan Stanek, throughout the course of the year, he was good. And then he got to a point, he went bad, but then he started getting, decent again. And the rap with him is he supposedly had back spasms. So if you can get a guy like Ryan Stanek for really cheap, I just say get as many legit bullpen options as possible. So bullpen, I would say maybe we're one more decent option and then another like backup option. So you get another guy, maybe a little less than AJ Minter. So you don't have to pay a crap load of money. Then you get a David Robertson. So you get like 2 or 3 good options. Then I would still really, really, really like to get Jack Flaherty. I would like to get a Jack Flaherty. Then I'll get a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Then, honestly, then you might have to go to war. Then you go to war after that. But I think if that would happen, if that happens, if we finish our offseason with Juan Soto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Sean Manaea, Jack Flaherty, I'm still hoping for, AJ Minter, David Robertson, I would say that is an A offseason. Right now, we're probably somewhere in the B range if you had to grade the offseason. But for us if you ask me, what would we need to get to the A range? I said you certainly got to add another pitcher. You can't get to the A range without a pitcher. All right. Even if you get a Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you got to improve the starting pitching. You need another option. Jack Flaherty, and I hope he didn't sign. I haven't been paying attention to him lately. But, yeah, that's a guy I would definitely go after. Okay, yeah. So that's a guy I would definitely go after. And I just brought him up real quick. And they said the latest rumor is that you have the Atlanta Braves possibly pursuing the former Dodger Jack Flaherty, and the thought process behind that was he could slot in, replace Max Fried at a lot lower price. So that's a guy with upside. He is certainly a guy with upside. And also, too, if you're the Mets, too, and the Braves, they have Acuna, he's been injured. Strider, he's been injured. The Braves might have another year where they still have their guys coming back from injury. So you might have another free pass year where you don't have to really worry about the big Brad Braves. And even if the Braves get their guys back at the end of the year, hopefully, if Juan Soto and everything's clicking on all cylinders, you have such a damn lead in the division that is going to be insurmountable. So I think the Mets have another incentive to make sure that they go all in on 2025. I just really see us making moves. I don't see us just finished. And and I'm going to repeat this: the Dodgers philosophy, the Dodgers could have basically ran it back. They could have ran it back. They won the World Series. They were the best of the best. They were the best of the best. They could have said to themselves, all right, you know what? We'll sign Teoscar Hernandez, bring back the same team. We have Ohtani, who's going to be available to pitch. We're fine. But no, the Dodgers went the extra mile. They signed Blake Snell. They made sure they got a Sasaki. They signed a Hyung Kim from I butchered that, from Japan. But they made sure that they upgraded their team. They got better. And with the New York Mets, this is another thing. David Stearns has his philosophy, but at the end of the day, the New York Mets, every single moment in time, have to make sure we are continually getting better. Continually getting better. Now, I mean, if you look at the lineup situation, is our lineup better today than it was last year? Is it better? Even when our lineup was a finished product. And I would have to argue that, it is, because at the end of the day, it's a very similar lineup. The only thing is you have Alonso being replaced by Soto, and Soto's an obvious upgrade. And then also, you probably expect guys like Vientos to continue to grow, Alvarez to continue to grow. So that would make it a better lineup. But that's not enough. That is not enough for the incremental difference between Pete Alonso and Juan Soto to be the reason why your lineup is better. We need to get legit, we need to get legit boppers in there. I mean, if it's not a Guerrero, let's see what David Stern's plan is, because, we need more firepower, especially if you're a guy who's not going to invest a lot of money in your pitching rotation. You got to invest somewhere. All right. So I would say that you got to get better every day, every year. So I would say just by default of replacing Soto with Alonso, or Soto replaces Alonso, that's going to be better. And then also too, you look at little incremental differences. Siri over Bader. I would say Jose Siri is a better player than Bader, and has a little more pop, a little more potential there. So that's another incremental difference. But yeah, okay. So I would say, in my opinion, you have the lineup being better. If you go over to the bullpen, we just got AJ Minter. I don't think we had any guy that was as good as AJ Minter. So the bullpen by default is going to be better than last year. And if you go to the starting rotation, Frankie Montas replaces Luis Severino. So is that better? I would say no. Severino, I would say, is probably a little better. Not much, but a little better than a guy like Montas. It's yet to be seen what Montas will look like after he gets in the pitching lab, the vaunted pitching lab of David Stearns. But then you got a guy like Clay Holmes. Now, does Clay Holmes have a higher ceiling than a guy like Quintana? I think yes. So I think that's where, you can make up some of the gap between Severino and Montas. But at the end of the day, did you get better in the starting rotation? And I cannot, you can argue with somebody, but I cannot definitively say yes. And that is a problem, folks. That is a problem if I cannot say that we are better with our starting rotation, especially when you got to look across the country and you have 5 Cy Young Award winners in that rotation, or 6. I mean, so that is a problem. That is a problem. So, and then also the differences between how much we got better in our lineup and our bullpen isn't a lot. I'm arguing. I'm splitting hairs to say we got a little better with the lineup. It's not good enough. Not good enough right now. And I'm not gonna go crazy about it, because the offseason is not over. And what we've learned about David Stearns is he is very methodical. He doesn't work at anybody's pace but his own, and he doesn't, he will not budge unless he gets his value on a player. Yeah, I see you guys talking about McNeil in the chat. I'm not really relying on McNeil. I'm really not. I'm really not. he's a homegrown Met, so I know like he has a lot. He's in a place. He's in the hearts of a lot of Mets fans. Sorry about that. So he's in the hearts of a lot of Mets fans. But we got to move forward. Second base is a position where you're going to probably slide in a lot of the youngsters. So whether you're going to have an Acuna in there or Ronnie Mauricio, they should get a bulk of the playing time. Unless McNeil's going to turn back the clock to 2019, it's just not really worth it to give him a lot of playing time. He's just going to be a jack of all trades guy. If he has a hot April, then you trade him. But I think the days of McNeil playing 150 games are long over. In fact, if that's probably more of a reason why you should probably trade him. There might be another team that values him more, and maybe you can get something decent for him if you can boost his value. Lest. All right, you're right. We need to snag a rise if we've given up on Pete. All right. This has actually been I would say that, this has been a topic in the last week and a half. Would fans be interested? Let's bring it up. Okay, so Luis Ariz, the three-time batting champion. So Luis, 27 years old. He's 5'10", plays first base, not the biggest guy. Heck, he's a guy. He's a guy with a heck of a hit tool. Obviously, like I said, he had the batting title 3 years. He won 3 times now. So 2024, 200 hits, 672 at bats, batted 314, 346 on base, 392 slug, 738 OPS. So and then actually, all right, I just want to get you the total numbers. So the total numbers is he had 4 home runs, 46 RBIs, 46 RBIs. So I just wanted to bring that out there. So he's a guy. He's got a hell of a hit tool. He's one of the best pure hitters in all of baseball. But he is essentially, a Luis Castillo type hitter. If you remember him, the second baseman, years ago. He's got no power at all. But is that something the Mets would like to replace Pete Alonso with? Basically, a guy like Jeff McNeil, but with less power, and who is not a good defensive guy. He is not a good defensive guy. So you're talking about putting Jeff McNeil is about 6'1", 6'2". So you're putting a guy who's smaller than Jeff McNeil, less power than Jeff McNeil. But he's Jeff McNeil. He's got Jeff McNeil's bat on Jeff McNeil's best day. So he's got a great bat. But if you ask me, I don't think he's that much of a significant upgrade if I'm going to let go of Alonso. I don't think between his lack of defense, lack of run producing, lack of hitting home runs, I don't like to see that at first base. I really don't. He's not, he would profile a lot better as a second baseman or maybe a corner outfielder. I can't put a guy who hits 4 home runs at first base. I just really can't. I really can. And I'm looking for a guy who can produce runs. We already have Lindor at the top of the lineup. We already have a guy like Nimmo who could be at the top of the lineup. We don't really need another table setter. We really don't. We really don't. I'd rather give a guy like Luis Angel Acuna a chance to set the table. So we've got multiple table setters, and I think we can get a lot more run production offensively, hitting home runs, RBIs, run producing opportunities with other players. And the defensive liability at first base is another, kind of like turnoff. So is he a nice player? Yeah, but if I'm going to get a guy who with a good hit tool, I'd rather get a guy like Yandy Diaz. A guy like Yandy Diaz. He's an older guy, but he's a guy who could pop close to 20 home runs. He's a guy who, he hit 323 last year. He has a lot more. He's more dynamic with the hit stick. I mean, you know what you get with Luis Ariz. What's up, Jose? So you're right. Since the Mets moved McNeil to the outfield, he's struggling. McNeil's been very streaky in his career. Very streaky. 1 year, 2019, he's good. Then he's bad. Then he wins the batting title. Then he's easy. He said, the thing is, him and Pete, right? And I think they're good friends. I really do think they're good friends. The old guard, I'm okay with the old guard being pushed out. I really am. Jeff McNeil's always been that emotional type player. Pete Alonso's been an emotional type player as well. Like, in fact, I was reading up on a lot of scouting reports, and this one particular scout says that he classifies a hitter by two different types of hitters. You're either an emotional hitter or a disciplined hitter, right? Obviously, you can have different attributes, but every hitter can either be emotional or disciplined, right? Or you can get more discipline, less discipline throughout your career. But this scout then went on to say that Pete Alonso is an emotional hitter. An emotional hitter is more streaky. Emotional hitter feels pressure. Juan Soto, if that same scout, would classify Juan Soto as a disciplined hitter. So, I'm looking for, and I'm sure David Stearns is looking for a lineup of disciplined hitters. Jeff McNeil, he'd probably be on the fence. I mean, I don't know if you can go from being a discipline to emotional to discipline, but I think that even a guy like Jeff McNeil would be considered an emotional hitter. That old guard of Michael Conforto, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, we all love those guys because they're homegrown guys, but at the end of the day, I think we need more talent, and I think you're going to see us getting more talent. And me, frankly, I was a lot sadder when we lost Jacob deGrom. I felt a lot more. I don't know if, and I'm comparing that to Pete Alonso, of course. It's not that I didn't have that attachment to Pete. It's just that I've seen that gradual decline over 2 years from Pete. You've seen that decline, and that now you see that the Mets have tried to bring him back multiple times, and it just seems like, playing elsewhere is going to be in the cards. Nimmo can't even walk right now. Damn. Yeah, hopefully he's doing better by spring training, but he's got plantar fasciitis, and that's typically not good for an athlete, especially a center fielder, a guy who's always got to be on the move. So, I mean, that's why they got Jose Siri. That is certainly why they got Jose Siri. He's probably going to be patrolling a lot of center field, and then they got Tyrone Taylor. So those two are going to get a lot of play in center field. I think your best defensive alignment is not Nimmo in center field. It's going to probably be Nimmo in left, going to be Soto in right, Siri in center. Hey, Richard. I mean, if you want to get a rise as that type of player, that type of fireball type of player. But I was talking about Luis Ariz as being your replacement for Pete Alonso. Jeremiah, what about Rizzo? I'm not a big Rizzo guy. I mean, if you're going to replace Pete, you need a significant upgrade. Apparently I wouldn't say obviously there's nobody like Keith. There's nobody like Keith, and that's a great thing. But all of Soto's teammates, I gotta say, he does have an effect. He does have an effect. There was a competition between Judge and Soto. You saw Judge had an even better year last year. I think, also all as a full complete hitter, he had his best year last year with Juan Soto. So Juan Soto has such a tremendous impact on the lineup. And then when you think about it, the Yankees didn't go to the World Series since 2009. I don't think the Yankees were that much better last year. It's just that they had such an elite player in Juan Soto, and the American League kind of stunk. Wilfredo, the Mets are not moving Lindor from the leadoff spot. I agree with that. Oh, this is why you said Rise, lead off, followed by Lindor, Soto, Soto, Vientos, and then Nemo. Yeah, I really don't think that, they unlocked a weapon when they moved Lindor to the leadoff spot. And you see a lot of these top elite hitters have hit first. Otani's hit first. Acuna's been hitting first. I mean, if you can get the right play, the right dynamic play, and Lindor in the leadoff spot is dynamic. A guy at the top of the lineup, that switch hitter who can, smoke 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, over 100 runs scored. I mean, he came in second in the MVP race, so he's a heck of a player to have at the top of the lineup. And you saw the rest of the team, how it just clicked. Everything clicked. I think there's no way you can mess around with that. No way. Especially for a guy who hits 5 home runs a year. I mean, if they somehow got, Luis Ariz, I'd be like, all right, you know what? Then you got to put him second. But I wouldn't be so crazy about that either. That's why I'm not so crazy about that move. Soto has the persona to influence the team for better. I 100% agree with that. A contact hitter is a plus. Yeah, contact hitter is a plus, but I'm just talking about replacing Pete. If you want to get a Guerrero and you want to get a Luis Ariz, yeah, that's fine. You want to put him at DH. I just don't want the guy at first base. I don't want him at first base. Wilfredo, there has to be a big bat on the trade market we don't know about. Yeah, I 100% agree with that as well. There's always guys on the market that, all of a sudden, you hear about and you're like, I didn't know that guy was available. And David Stearns, everything is tight-lipped with this New York Mets organization. Guys like Andy Martino are scratching on the door of Steve Cohen and David Stearns for information. They don't know. They don't know. And that's why, like, a couple, yesterday, yeah, a day ago, getting my days mixed up, when he was so definitive about the Mets have officially pivoted to plan B, I'm like, how the heck would you know that? I'm just, if you put two and two together, you can kind of say, yeah, Guerrero is an upgrade over, Pete, this and that. Now Guerrero might leave and, Toronto needs a replacement and they're interested in Pete. So yeah, things kind of connect and you could put two and two together. But I got to wait till things are more official. So at the end of the day, who knows? Maybe Pete comes back down to reality and say, hey, the Blue Jays are offering me 3 years 80. The Mets offering me 3 years 70. Am I going to leave New York for $10 million? I think he has to come to realization. He has to look at all his deals on the table and look at the pros and cons of each of the deals. And at the end of the day, I'll say this, and I will continue to say this. Alonso means the most to the New York Mets. And if Alonso's goal is to go out there and have one good year to try to get another contract, I think he would be foolish to go anywhere else other than New York. He doesn't have time for an adjustment period. He doesn't have time to get used to another team. He needs to hit the ground running. So, in my opinion, if Pete's got to take $5 or $10 million less to play in Queens, that might be worth it because I think he'll have a better year playing behind Mr. Juan Soto and playing at home, playing with in front of fans who love and adore him. And even if he doesn't do good, that will accept him. If he goes to Toronto and they play him over $100 million, Pete better damn well produce because those fans have no emotional attachment to Pete. And they don't care how he feels. They don't care. All they care about is they paid this man to be a superstar, give him $100 million. He may be replacing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So Pete's going to have a lot of pressure in Toronto. So I don't get. But at the end of the day, if he's staring at $10-15 million right in front of him more, that may be something he values more. And this is going to be what the biggest job for Carlos Mendoza this year. I fully believe that David Stearns wants to see what these guys can do. Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, even Brett Beatty, Jet Williams. I'm not sure about Jet Williams, and I'll tell you why. It depends what they want to do with trading him. The last thing you want to do is if you're considering trading Jet Williams, bring him up to the majors, and he stinks for 1 or 2 months. And it's not fair to judge a guy on limited at-bats, but there is a risk of diminishing the value of your prospect if you expose him to major league pitching and he fails right off the bat. So just keep that in mind. And these guys that, Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford I want to keep. But if you bring these guys up, and you intend to possibly trade them, that is a huge risk. Remember one thing, Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty's value has sunk in the last year. I knew this guy's name would come up. and then there's Arenado. So Arenado, he's another curious case. And Arenado, you know what I was surprised? Arenado, he has a no-trade clause, but he has waived his no-trade clause for a few teams, and one of them being the New York Mets. So the New York Mets, if they want to, they could trade for him, and Nolan Arenado will waive his no-trade clause to come to Queens. So do I like that? I love guys who want to come to Queens, but he's a 34-year-old guy, right? And just like Pete, this guy has started to really diminish. I think last year, 17 home runs, 71 RBIs. His defense has started to diminish as well. Unless the Mets discover there was a reason why he diminished so drastically and so quickly, I don't want to touch this guy. I don't want to touch him. I'd rather give his playing time to one of the kids and develop them. And kids being Ronnie Mauricio, Acuna, one of those kids on that level. But he's a 34-year-old guy who's been really diminishing in the last year and a half, 2 years. I want to upgrade. I want a definitive upgrade. I want to pencil in a guy, and that will be a no doubt about it upgrade. Lindor appeared to become a disciplined hitter last year. I think, you know what? That's a great point. I think we saw Lindor transform into the team leader. I think we saw, Pete Alonso, he kind of diminished as a hitter, but, Pete Alonso, that was his last year. Lindor basically put the team on his back. I'm the captain. This is my team. I'm going to be here the next 7-8 years. We're only going to go somewhere. We're only going to go as far as I take this team. And you saw Lindor early June really transform his whole approach. You're right. He was extremely disciplined. He wasn't chasing balls like he was. He was being patient. He was working the account, and his swing was extremely balanced. If you notice Lindor, when Lindor is not on, he is not balanced in the box, and his swing is not fluid. It's not a strong swing. But, go look at Lindor, the first year, I believe April, May. He was so off balance. His swing wasn't, he didn't take those strong swings. Lindor, he takes a hack. He takes a hack every single time, and he hits the ball hard. So Lindor, you're right. He was extremely disciplined, and, he did really transform. I would say that's a good example of a guy transforming into a disciplined hitter. Ernesto, in Stearns, I trust. And, I feel that way too. But I feel that every guy, no matter how good he is, because remember Brian Cashman could have been considered the best general manager 15, 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago. He would have been considered the best general manager. But, what happens? Baseball changes. Times change. You cannot have the same philosophy every single year, every single player. You have to adapt or die. You remember that saying? Adapt or die. So Stearns, yes, he can use a lot of his his foundational principles, but Stearns, just like everybody else, has to adapt. And, the offseason is not concluded yet. There's still plenty of time for Stearns to cook, to work, to make this team better. And I am hoping that whatever is going on in LA motivates these guys, that front office, every single day to make this team better. Jose, thank you so much, my man. I really appreciate that. I really do. That helps out a lot. It really does. Working late right now, so thank you. All the thanks to you. Appreciate it. Yeah, explosive. Absolutely. Stearns, I would say, is in love with the 3-year deal, and he's in love with the 1-year deal with the opt-out. In fact, you know what? That's his big love right now. The 1-year deal with the second year being the opt-out. And then I would say with these max is the Sean Manaea type deal. 3 years. That would be his max deal if he likes a pitcher. That's why I think they were really heavily interested in getting Luis Castillo. Like there was genuine interest in Luis Castillo. And the Mets thought they can get Luis Castillo at a fair price because 3 years left, got about 70-something million, and there's also an option for a 4th year. So potentially, even though Castillo's 31, whatever team acquires him could be acquiring him for 4 years. And his stuff has kind of, scouts have said his stuff has kind of declined a little. So, you think you can get this guy at a good price, but Seattle's asking for the sun, the stars, the moon, and everything for him. And I mean, even if you go to a Baseball Savant, they don't really value Luis Castillo at all. I think they give him like a value grade of like 5. No, I think his value is like 7. And, just to put that into perspective, Brett Beatty's value is like 11. So Brett Beatty has more value according to baseball trade values, and that's a site that evaluates the value of players, for trades. So Seattle really, if they ever want to trade Castillo, and maybe they don't, maybe that's why they put a ridiculous price on him because they never really wanted to trade him. But if another team is dumb enough to give 10 times what he's worth, then we'll trade him. Maybe that's the case. But if that trade value ever comes back down to reality, the Mets would probably be interested in a guy like that because that's perfect what they're looking for. Established guy who has potential to be an ace, and he's on a 3-year contract. Wilfredo, pizza fisherman. Yeah, now he did it. He did a heck of a lot of fishing last year. He certainly did. John, what do you think the Mets do next? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, if you asked me before today, it would have been easy. I would have said they're going to go after a bullpen arm. They were rumored to go after Tanner Scott. They ended up getting AJ Minter. But what would they do next? That's really tough. I still think they need a lot of help with pitching. They still need, I still think they need another starter. I think they need another maybe one or two options in the bullpen, legit options. Obviously they need a first baseman. Pete Alonso can always come to terms. That could be another move. Or there could be that surprise batter that we're not even thinking of. But if I had to predict, the next move, I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm gonna do the least likeliest move, but why not go out there? I'm gonna say that they're gonna trade for. I'm gonna say they're gonna go for a starter, maybe Jack Flaherty. That's probably the least likeliest move. The easiest move would probably be maybe re-signing a Pete Alonso, getting a bat. But just to be different, I'll say they're gonna surprise us all and sign Jack Flaherty. I think DeGrom still has one good year left. So, and I'm looking up Jake right now. Jacob DeGrom has been out for the last year and a half. And I remember everybody was up in arms that we didn't give Jake that contract. And Jake was already injured with us. He was already coming off an injury-plagued season in 2022. He pitched only 11 games. 11 games. So since Jake left, it's been 2 years since Jake left. 2 years. He's pitched 40 innings. 40 innings in 2 years. And he's pitched good in 40 innings. He's 9-3, 9-3. And his ERA with Texas is 2.41. So he's been lights out, but just that was the problem. That was the worry. He was getting old, and we didn't think his body was going to hold up. Now his contract, he's making $40 million this year, $38 million next year, $37 million in 2027. And then there's a mutual option for $37 million in 2028. So, I mean, for this contract to be worth it, he's got to pitch almost every single inning in every single start that he has left. And do I think that's going to happen? No. So, could he have, out of these next 3 years, one good year? Yeah, because he's literally had a 2-year rest. So, yeah, I think that's, not a bad prediction. But, then again, the guy could get hurt like he's been getting hurt the last 5 years. Stearns was trying to give Pete what he's worth now, but Boras trying to get Pete money for what he's already done. And I think that's a pretty accurate summation of what's going on. And that's really the difference about a guy, David Stearns, and a guy like Billy Epler. Forget about Billy Epler. Many guys of the past, that's what they done. That's what they did. If you look at all those contracts, Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, all of you who have seen my videos, you've heard me say this so many times. All of those guys got mega contracts. Albert Pujols at 32 got a 10-year contract. Miguel Cabrera, almost the same thing in his low 30s. All those guys got paid for past production. And tragically, every single I want everybody, right now, think of one first baseman who was signed to a long-term contract being over 5 years in their 30s that had a successful long-term contract. One person. Every single guy, Mark Teixeira, Ryan Howard, I guess right now, right off the bat, Freddie Freeman, he's been doing pretty good, but it's been few and far between. So there hasn't been many. And in the case of Pete, I don't see him being the outlier. If Freddie Freeman was an outlier, I do not. I do not see Pete as an outlier. Pete's a different hitter than a guy like Freddie Freeman. He's more of a guy like, he profiles frame-wise more of a guy like, I'd say Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols, Ryan Howard, more of those big guys, a bit overweight. Pete's a guy that, you would think he would get in the tip-top condition, but he didn't even do that. I'm not trying to get on Pete. I'm just observing. Jose, you're right. If the Mets don't sign Vladimir Guerrero, or trade, right? Best option is re-sign Pete and Santander as an everyday DH. This is, I think we said this like 2 weeks ago. Like this is a move I'd be perfectly happy with. I would be perfectly happy with re-signing Pete and Santander. Not on a crazy contract. And then if we do that and you want to try to sign him next year, Vladimir, that's fine. That's fine. You're getting a decent bat in Pete, then you're getting additional offense in Santander, and then I still expect the Mets to add more around that. I'm fine with that. I'm really fine with that. I mean, right now we just got Winker. Winker would be but this is perfectly good. That's a good, solid move. I like that, Jose. Very good. Holla. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, the lawsuit hurt the Padres' chances for sure. It really did. It really, really did. And I think there were serious considerations about Sasaki going to the Padres. I mean, he has his relationship with Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish is signed for the next 4 years. The pitching, and then they talked about, and I think when Sasaki said all those things about, I want to go to a place with a challenge. I want to go to a place where they have, an opportunity for me to grow, get better. There's been no other place. The Mets have done a good job, but so have the Padres in developing pitchers. Michael King, he was okay with the Yankees, but, I'll say maybe more than okay, but he just took it up to another level. Guys have done a really great job. The Padres have done a really great job. Their pitching coach is phenomenal. But I do think the lawsuit really changed the perspective, and rightfully so. This instability, every player wants stability, and that's why I'm saying I want to build that stability in Queens. Have a core lineup for the next 5-6 years, whether that's a Guerrero, Soto, Lindor, and that's what we could potentially have. And I think that's what the Mets would want to do. But that drastically hurt the Padres' chances, and in turn, possibly could have hurt if Sasaki's going to be that lights out. That's going to be another challenge for the Mets winning the World Series. Well, Pete has destroyed his swing entering the home run derbies. I like seeing Pete in the home run derby. I did, but I gotta say the only home run derby that really kind of annoyed me was this last one. And it it was a combination. The comments, Pete saying before the home run derby, I'm only going to play in the home run derby if I'm an all-star. I didn't really like him kind of using that card. Obviously we know a player can play in the home run derby without being an all-star. But he essentially lobbied to be in the all-star game by saying, hey, yeah, I'm a two-time home run champ. I'll be in the home run derby. I didn't like that. And then once you got to the home run derby, Pete essentially looked washed up. A defending home run champ looked washed up. Like, I don't know. I know you probably have to prepare, this proper preparation. The guy just showed up. I mean, he didn't show up to win, show up to play. When he first was in the home run derby, I mean, he considered himself the best home run hitter in baseball. He had that confidence, that swagger. Didn't have that. He had the swagger of a washed up player, and it was very disappointing to see. Very disappointing after he fought and clawed to be there. And he was favored. He was favored by a lot of betting places that he would win, and he did horrible. He did horrible. And then also making the All-Star game over guys like Lindor, Nimmo, even Vientos. That was also disappointing too. And then more comments that really kind of bothered me. And the thing is, I say bothered me. Maybe I hold Pete to a high standard, but it's because I expect a lot from Pete. I expect him to be a leader. I expect him to say, guys, follow me. And then when they ask Pete, kind of before the trade deadline, are you disappointed in your season? And then he goes saying, no, I'm an all-star. I'm being set for 40 home runs. It really kind of bothered me. Especially I'm an all-star. You had other players in the team who deserve to be an all-star more. How about saying, hey, you know what? Everybody, all these guys are all-stars. All these guys are great teammates. Our goal is to win a World Series. Forget about me. Forget about what I'm doing. My biggest goal is to make this team better. I mean, it's got to be more about the team and less about the individuals. I mean, anybody, any team, any player who just focuses on themselves, that bothers me. And people ask me, was Soto greedy? A lot of these players are greedy. But now you got a situation where a guy like Alonso is, in the spotlight. He's dragged this out very, very far. And I don't know. I just hope everything gets settled quickly. And you know what? I think Pete too. To be fair to Pete, I think he's received a lot of bad advice. A lot of bad advice. A guy like Boris really didn't do Pete any favors. Really did not do Pete any favors. Really, Boris should have forecasted the free agent market so much better. Should have said, "Hey, Pete, we got to get you signed early. We got to get you signed quickly. When they spend all the money, we don't know who's going to be left standing. Let's get you signed quickly." And then also, too, let's not ask for a ridiculous $200 million contract because then we're going to price out 90% of the teams. That's not what you want. Let's start you at $140 million. Let's have 4 or 5 teams bid on you, get the price up, then you'll end up getting your thing. So I got to really blame Mr. Scott Boras for pointing Pete in the right direction. Wrong direction. I see that. So, Wilfredo, you're like, Mets don't even have a first baseman right now. But, I mean, here's the thing. First base, I would say probably the easiest position on the field to fill. The easiest. I mean, shortstop, catcher, center fielder, those are like, premier positions, you would say. But first base, as you can see, there were a lot of options. A lot of teams, filled that first base need, and there's still players on the free agent list that could be, filled. I guess Anthony Rizzo, I'm crazy about, but I'm not worried about first base. I am not worried about first base. And like I said, the offseason is nowhere near over. We are in mid-January. You still have January, February, March. We still have time. You're right. Gotta respect Stearns, though. Even with the unlimited money glitch, backing him doesn't want another bad deal with Verlander Scherzer. Here's what I gotta say about that. I like the fact that he's being, financially responsible. I like that, right? Because then you set yourself up to have money when there's going to be a mega free agent or a superstar. You're going to have money available. You're always going to have money available. The way he's setting himself up, right? But I do want to say one thing. I want to say one thing as well, right? Because this is also important. So he's setting himself up to always have those liquid funds available for that, a monumental player that will have a significant impact. But here's one thing. I don't want Stearns or anybody to forget this. No team that's been successful has been successful without taking zero risk. There has to be some level of risk. Now, do you mitigate that level of risk or limit that level of risk? Yes, you do. But I expect you have to. You cannot eliminate all risk. So, he's done a great job making sure you don't have these silly contracts on there, that we've had. Last year, the funny thing was that we almost got to the World Series, 2 games short, and our payroll on Fangraphs was like 334. It was like close to 350 million. But our on the field payroll with players actually playing was $180 million. $180 million. A good chunk of our payroll was given to players that weren't even on the Mets. Verlander, Scherzer, McCann, a bunch of dead money. If Stearns could just, even allocating that money to players that are on the team and successfully contributing to the New York Mets would be a huge win. All right, folks. I'm gonna probably get going for the night, but I just want to thank everybody for hanging out. It's been fun. It's been fun. I'm going to get some rest. But you know what? Hopefully we got something to report, something of significance in the near future. I also want to thank all the new members who have joined our channel memberships. I appreciate that. It helps support the channel. So thank you. Thank you again. I believe Stoney was our last member. Appreciate that. But okay, so we're going to see each other very, very soon. Everybody have a great night. Anybody who's in LA, please be safe. Anybody on the West Coast, please be safe. Thank you as always. Have a great night, and let's go Mets.